Well, it's time for Oh So Inspired, and I think I made plenty of cards to share. Hey, it's Bitty Penny. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you're here. That's right, it's time for Oh So Inspired. We have a brand new team. It's growing, growing, growing. Check out the playlist down below so you can see what everyone has made in this hop. Today we are casing Fiona Witten, and we have her Instagram and her blog spot down below, so make sure you go check out her as well. I am using this mixed media bird set from Sweet Pea Curiosities on Etsy. You'll find it linked down below. And I have this Park Lane Old World 6x8 paper pad. I'm smashing the entire thing. It was brand new and I used every single sheet. So stick around with me. I'll show you how I did it. I thought I would well, first of all, I just thought this paper pad was gorgeous, and I do use the cut aparts just to show you an alternative if you don't have the birds, or if you're maybe on a no-buy right now, like me. Anyways, but I want to show you how to use a 6x8 paper pad to make these 5x7 cards. You don't need any dies, and we're just going to jump right into this. So for my backgrounds, I cut it down to 4x6. Of course, because you're using 6x8 paper, you could cut it to where it's like 4 3/4, 4.5. You have more options. You could cut it to 5x7 even. But I did choose 4x6, and then these are my scraps. You definitely want to follow the way that I cut if you want these exact scraps, which was cutting the 2 inches off first, so cutting the 4x8 and then cutting it down to 6. Okay, now when I'm starting to design something, sometimes I'll start with just my white scraps and cut them down to what the sheet load will call for. This is not a sheet load, but I had an idea of how I wanted to cut my paper to get the most out of my paper, and I wanted to offer you and guys an idea in case you don't have dies, you don't do die cutting. I wanted a really simple version. So my squares are 1 inch by 1 inch and 1.5 by 1.5. Now, with this little sheet right here, you may not have this branding strip, which means these cuts may or may not work for you, but you can actually get quite a bit out of that little piece right there. You can get your 2 1.5 squares that you need for each card if you were making it just like me, and a couple of 1 inch by 1 inch. So I'll show you how I did that. I trimmed it down to 1.5 first. I wanted to make sure I could get my biggest pieces, and then from this little scrap, which is just the attachment, the branding strip, I got my 1 inch squares, my inchies. And then those are my 1.5 by 1.5. So I kept it simple and I only did 2 squares because, I mean, it really doesn't need to be that complicated. And these are the scraps that I had left over. So for these 2 inch strips, you can cut those down to 1 inch by 8 inches, and you can get a bunch of inchies that way. You can decorate the inside, or you can also use those for your 1.5 inch squares. I made my card bases. I cut them down to 10 by 7. I scored it 5 inches on the 10 inch side. And so I made 25 cards, you guys. That's right. It took a while. I'm going to talk a little bit with you about the process. If you were crazy like me and decided to make 25 cards, do it in a mass making style. So the first thing was cutting all of my paper, getting all of my bases ready and prepping those. Then I needed to glue down my background. So I glued all of my backgrounds at one time. Then I would go in and I glued down all of my squares. Also, when you're in the process of drafting like your squares, using your scraps and trying to figure out your card, that is a good time to take a picture of whatever you come up with. Like if you find an arrangement you really like, take a picture of it. And that way you can remember it when you get to this step and you're trying to glue down all your pieces again. These cut-aparts are a great addition for a focal point or a centerpiece. I did make 3 cards with those, but the other 22 cards all have birds on them, and I just love the way they came together. I think you can see immediately the inspiration that I took from Fiona's card, which was, the same shape, making that bordered line. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about my finished cards, because obviously there was a little bit of a gap in the video because I had to do a lot of this at the kitchen table in the evenings, and it was a bit of a process, but I decided to add this gorgeous ribbon to my cards, and I popped up my birds as well. So for my ribbon, I just used my razor blade and I just cut a little bit into the card base right there so I could thread the ribbon through and tie it on the front. I just think this makes for a beautiful card. And then I also, you can't really see it, I'm trying to show you, but I recycled cardboard boxes to pop up my birds because, again, when you're making like 25 cards, you don't want to use that much foam tape. I mean, I don't want to use that much foam tape. You do you. But I would much rather use and recycle a cardboard box. So that's what I did to pop up all of my birds. Not all of my bows are identical because they're hand tied. But I did tie one, figure out the length that I liked, and then I cut all my ribbon strips. Everything was done in a mass making style. So all 25 cards treated and, done the same way all at once. So all the backgrounds, gluing down all the squares, gluing cardboard and cutting out all my ephemera. I mean, this took a while. It was a labor of love, but I really do love these. You could tell the first one I made had this super long bow, but then I knew I was going to run out of that ribbon, so that's why I shortened my bow, but I love it really long like that. Here's a super short bow. So really there is no wrong way to do this. I love the way they look on the inside with that ribbon and the leftover patterned paper. I did have some 2-inch strips left over, but that's always a good thing in my opinion, to have 2-inch patterned paper scraps. I cannot wait to see what everyone has made, especially our newest members. Welcome to the team, everybody. I see so many of my friends here, and that makes me so excited. I hope you guys enjoy the playlist. It's so fun because you can just click play and watch all videos, and then you don't have to click and hop around and remember which links you use. The playlist really is awesome, so I hope you guys enjoy that feature. Thank you, Alicia, for having me back and, allowing me the opportunity to be on this team. I always have so much fun. Here are my 3 cards that I used the cutouts, and then I did not cut those because I had already adhered those to my card fronts. So on those, I just put the ribbon around the edge, and I thought y'all'd like to see an alternative in case you don't want to cut your card base and run your ribbon through the middle the way I did. I mean, you can still tie it on the side. You get a very similar effect. I like both. There's no wrong way. I think both are really beautiful. And then, I just love the way the squares hang over to the edges and the ribbon. I think it really makes these cards pop. I hope you enjoyed this video and feel inspired, and I'll see you next time.